Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz Young, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we uncover the digital skills, strategies, and stories that help small businesses succeed in a tech-driven world. In today's episode, we're exploring how to grow your business through smart, secure, and sustainable tech without getting overwhelmed by the fast pace of change. And to help us break it all down, we're joined by the brilliant Liz Smith from Lugo. Liz is a tech expert with a strong belief that innovation should empower, not intimidate business owners. At Lugo, she works directly with organisations across Scotland to help them harness the power of technology while staying secure and resilient in an ever-evolving digital landscape. Whether it's navigating AI tools, setting up solid cybersecurity systems, or future-proofing your operations with smart IT strategy, Liz and the team have a knack for translating complex tech into practical solutions. She's passionate about making sure businesses don't just adopt technology, but actually use it well to innovate and grow. In this episode, we talk about what it really makes to stay ahead in business today, how to balance the risks and rewards of emerging technologies, what SMEs need to know about cybersecurity, and how to build a tech strategy that actually supports your goals. So lots to talk about. Let's get into it. Hello, Liz. Welcome.
Good morning, Sue. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining today. So that's a quite a meaty bio there, Liz. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started in tech and what led you to your role at Lugo?
Well, I initially trained as an accountant back in the day. So I did my degree in accountancy and then I went straight into a chartered accountant training contract in Glasgow at what was Panel Care Foster at that point. And while I was there, I had developed a really keen interest in technology. And I was the kind of go-to person for a lot of the accountancy queries when it came to things like Sage software. And one day I was on the Sage website, not looking for a different job, and came across a job at Sage covering Scotland and Northern Ireland and thought, oh, I'll just apply for that. And then, cut a long story short, yeah, spent 12 years working at Sage as a technical support consultant out covering accountancy firms, basically, all over Scotland and Northern Ireland and helping them, supporting them to be compliant. So, having the accountancy background, it was really good that I was able to help them with their tech and being able to link the accountancy requirements, but also making sure that their tech was where it had to be and give them training and make sure their software was up to date. So yeah, I was in that job for a while, and when I was in that job, I met up with Ron Weatherup, who's our managing director at Lugo, and Ron worked for a Sage accountant centre. So at that point, Sage outsourced all of their professional services work to an accountant centre. So he worked for Lomond Systems. So we had mutual clients basically. And he would go in and manage the systems, and manage the servers, and manage the updates. And any practice that I went to that was managed by Ron, their systems were pretty good, let's say. So it was always a dream to go and visit a practice where he was actually able to be the one that managed it. Then approach Ron and say, do you fancy taking me on as a business development director? And he was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. So yeah, I invested in Lugo at that point, and yeah, I've been at Lugo now for about 11 years, I think it is. So I lead the business development team there, and we also actually run the Sage user group. So we set up the Sage user group when I joined Lugo as well. So we run that. We have meetings twice a year, spring and autumn. So anyone that uses Sage software in a practice is very welcome to join us at the user group as well. But yeah, we have a variety of accountancy firms as clients, which is nice. So I've still got that kind of accountancy connection. And then over the years, those accountants have actually recommended Lugo to their clients. So that means that we have a variety of businesses. So the second sector that we specialise in is housing associations, because we had, a few accountancy firms that did a lot of accounts for housing associations. So that's how they came to us. So word of mouth is always a nice way. But yeah, we do have a variety of SMEs that we manage their IT for, that they outsource and partner with Lugo for their entire IT. So if they don't have their own internal IT, then they can outsource it to Lugo and we can manage it for them.
Wow, so what a journey, and it shows actually how Lugo does what it does now because of that journey that you've kind of went through from accounting into doing IT. So tell us a little bit more of what does Lugo actually do? So you mentioned accountancy there, you mentioned housing associations as your secondary. Tell us a bit more about what actually does Lugo do and how do you work together to be able to support businesses?
Yeah. Well, we basically take the burden of IT off of businesses' shoulders. So when businesses, set up, if they're not, if IT is not their business, then they tend to not have an interest in IT, and it's just something that has to work for them. And I think with everything that happened over COVID, there was an awful lot of appreciation for how much we're reliant on IT as well. So I think people's kind of mindsets have been changed a wee bit, and now that so many people are able to work from anywhere, which really wasn't the case pre-COVID, then I think what Lugo do is, not only do we take the burden of IT away from your shoulders as a business, but we also are able to provide technology that is secure and reliable, and know that you've got a help desk there. So if you ever come across an issue, you've got somebody on the end of the phone that you can speak to that will talk you through how to fix what it is, that's not working at the moment without you throwing your computer out the window. Um, but also, I mean, the best IT support is the one that you never need to phone because everything just works. So that's our goal would be that, we have no inbound calls and everything that we do is proactive. So we have, it's a completely managed service. So we, from the outset, from you kind of coming on board as a client, we do what's called a technology alignment service. So that's where we've set a standard that we believe businesses should be at with their IT. So it's a mixture of things like looking at the National Cybersecurity Centre Cyber Essentials framework. So that's a government-backed scheme, and that allows businesses to say, right, okay, I'm going to match my business to these 5 key controls. And if I've got these controls in place, which the government has said that if you have these in place, then your business is more secure, and the chances of being, under a cyber attack are much less if you have these basic things in place. Um, so that's part of our standard. So even if the client doesn't want to go through the certification of Cyber Essentials, they're actually able to get their business to that level without having to pay for the certification. And if they want to go on and pay the government certification, it starts at about £300 a year, and it's the price that's dictated by the government. So it's a bit like when you take your car for an MOT, there's a certain amount that you pay for that MOT. So Cyber Essentials is similar to that. And then the other kind of frameworks that we look at, there's something called CIS benchmarks. And that's a global standard that IT systems should be in line with. And if they're in line with that, then they're, deployed and secure in the way that's the best way for the systems that you're using. For example, there'll be advice for servers and devices and cloud environments. So we look at the CIS benchmarks as well. And then the other thing that we align with is what's called Microsoft Secure Score. So every business that has a Microsoft tenant, so if you have, your email in Microsoft, you maybe use Teams, maybe use SharePoint, Then in the background, if you're an admin, you'll be able to log in and see what your Microsoft Secure score is, and that's a percentage out of 100. Now, the chances of ever getting to 100 are probably zero, but it gives you lots of guidance and things that you should be doing or should be considering having in your policies. So those three elements kind of make up our Lugo standard. And that standard will change over time as cyber threats increase, as different technologies become around. So we have, the growth of AI, for example, at the moment, then that standard increases. So, for example, some of the more recent recommendations is to develop your systems in line with zero trust architecture. So that means that by default, you're just not trusting anything. You're not trusting who you say you are, the device that you're on, the location that you're in, the systems that you're trying to access. So that's the kind of initial real benchmark your business against our standards. And then from that, we'll come away with a project plan with you, which is in line with your business strategy. And every business strategy is different. And you might not even know where you want to go. So we can help you because we've got that business background. Ron trained in accountancy as well. Both Ron and myself are great advocates of, talking IT, but in a very natural UK English plain language. It's not, we don't speak tech gobbledygook that people hopefully don't understand. So it's all about having a plan, deciding what you're going to do this quarter, next quarter, what you can budget for when, and taking into consideration the things that you have to do. For example, the Windows 10 operating system becomes end of life on the 14th of October this year. So that means that operating system just isn't supported by Microsoft anymore. It won't get any security updates. So do you still have devices that are running Windows 10? Do you need to look at seeing if that device can upgrade to Windows 11? And if not, then that device will need replaced or decommissioned. And again, are you using a PC plus a laptop? Can we narrow that down, reduce your threat landscape, and just have one device per person, which is kept up to date, secure, things like rebooting it. So actually doing a proper shutdown, making sure all your security updates are applied. So that's all part of the kind of general advice. Not only do we do a technical alignment when you come on as a client, but then we'll continue to do it. So anything up to quarterly meetings we'll have either in person or over Teams. We'll come out to your business. And those meetings will be to carry on with the plan and to advise on the latest recommendations that have come from the National Cybersecurity Centre and the other frameworks that we look at. But like I say, all in plain English, that the business can actually put into practical changes to make their business more secure. And you basically don't want to be the low-hanging fruit when it comes to cybersecurity. You just want to be, if you're talking about having to run away from a bear, you don't need to run away from the bear. Don't need to outrun them. You only need to outrun the person that's next to you. And if you can do that with your cybersecurity and your systems in your business, then the chances are that the cyber criminals, the threat actors that are out there, will go for the lowest hanging fruit, the stuff that's easiest available to them.
There is so much in that I want to take up. And I'm going to start with, first of, I'm picking up my phone here, and anybody that's watching this, they will see that I'm holding my phone in my hand. And I'm going to ask you this question, Liz, because I hear it all the time. So I'm going to ask you the same, being in IT support. Do you hear this phrase? I'm not techie. As I'm holding this phone and waving it about in my hand. I'm not techie. I hate tech. I am not a technical person. However, they're holding their phone. They've got their laptop in their hand. They've got a tablet of sorts. They're wearing a smartwatch. They go into their smart car and they start interacting with the technology in a way. So people can't change their mindset when it comes to a work format for when it comes to them utilizing their technology. It's almost like they forget that it's the same device, it's just used differently when you're in a work format. And when it comes to making sure that not only your business is safe, but also your customers and the team itself are safe and secure, having cyber essentials and being cyber aware is a huge part of that. So let's start off with that cyber
Mhm.
aspect and for businesses, because I know that you'll have questions like this from the start. And again, it leads back to this I'm not techie. So a lot of the questions I'll get, and I'm sure you'll get the same as well, and it's around they don't even think about cybersecurity as a starting point. They just need to get their technology working for them. So they're not aware that actually getting set up from a cyber awareness point of view is really fundamental as part of their setup. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to touch back on your phone
Uh huh.
scenario as well, it's funny how people's budgets are quite different when it comes to their phone as to their laptop. So people kind of forget the fact that they spend potentially over £1,000
That's
on
right.
this wee thing that's in their pocket that they sometimes drop down the toilet. Um, but ask them to spend £1,000 on a laptop that they'll potentially have for 5 years and that runs their business.
Mm.
That's a different kettle of fish.
I also like to explain it this way as well. The technology is a staff member. You have to give it the same amount of respect, the same amount
Mm,
of work, the same amount of time that you give a team member as you do your technology, because the technology is the tool to help you to do your job more effectively. So you have to treat it with care. You
care
have to
for it,
treat it with
exactly.
love and care for it in the same way it's a human being that's on your
Mm,
team. So when you
yeah.
come with the mentality of, I hate tech, I hate this, then you're immediately saying to that
Mm,
person almost, right? That is,
yeah.
I don't like you. I'm putting that barrier in place.
Yeah.
And then everything that goes wrong with that piece of technology, you're blaming it on that piece of technology rather than your mindset of going, I hate this tech. But actually, the tech is helping you to do what it
I
is that you
know.
need to do. So it's a mindset shift half the time for changing for people, isn't it?
I know, I know completely. And I think it's people is such a big part of business. It's one of your well, it's your largest cost in business, no matter what business you have. It's your largest cost is your people cost. And they can be your greatest strength or your weakness, your biggest weakness. And it's especially when it comes to cybersecurity, educating your team is just paramount because it's those people, if the software doesn't stop, the threat coming through. If you get that dodgy email through and somebody's busy, the threat actors know what they're doing. They send the emails through at the time where they think, yeah, accountants are busy. It's coming towards the end of January. They'll send out something that looks like it's coming from HMRC and they'll click on it and they'll put in their details. And before you know it, if they've been scammed, their details are gone. They're on the dark web for sale. But if you can continually educate your team, then it makes such a huge difference. The recommendation at the moment is that every team member should be educated in cybersecurity at least every 6 months.
6 months, I
Now,
didn't know that was the timing.
yeah,
But I mean, I agree with that 100%.
yeah,
If
because
anyone's
things
looking at this
change.
behind me, this is a picture of what people feel confident in and what they don't feel confident in or what they would like to improve. And any of those red dots, and literally right behind me, cybersecurity has only got 2 yellow dots and the rest are all red dots because it's where people feel less confident.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
And you
don't know
can't
what
put
you
your
guys
head in the
share.
sand.
No, you can't. And we share in our courses for cybersecurity is that it's in the Venn diagram, there's the technology, there's the hackers, and then there's the bots and all of the other tools in that hackers toolkit that they use. And it's the human in the middle. And
Mm,
it's us in the middle of that
yeah,
that are the weakest point.
yeah,
We're the thing that can cause all of those problems. So it's up to us and how we utilize our technology and how we interact with it on a day by day basis,
yeah,
personal as well as work life. We have to change behaviors.
yeah.
And we
And
can't come with the assumption that we know either.
no, and I think it's having the mindset as well, like as a business leader, that we need to be very encouraging of team members to come towards you and open with you if they feel that they have maybe clicked on something that they shouldn't have clicked on. The best thing that they could do is come to you straight away and say, actually, I don't think that was right. I think I'm quite suspicious of maybe that, and I maybe don't think I should have done what I've done. The best thing to have is that kind of open attitude to encouraging people, to let you know when they think things have maybe not gone the way that they should have gone, and they've maybe clicked on something that they shouldn't have, or their computers maybe started to run a bit slower and you think, out of the blue, is there some application running away on there that's in the background that shouldn't be running?
Yeah, what
Um,
sneakily snuck itself onto that machine. So what do you think is the kind of foundations, the fundamentals that any business owner should have, whether they are an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or that small business that's maybe starting to grow their team, they're needing to think about other devices. Also, if they're using personal devices, which
mm,
is very common nowadays, we'll maybe do that in a different question actually, but let's start then with fundamentals, right? So, what are the fundamentals from a cybersecurity perspective that
yeah.
business owners need?
So the thing that's free that everybody should have is multi-factor authentication. So if you're logging into your email, you should be getting challenged for a code to be able to, or a biometric, or something else to be able to then verify that it's you that's getting in. Now, the most recent advice now is that that code ideally shouldn't come through text message because, again, your SIM cards can be cloned. So the code should come through an authenticator app. So something like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator app. And that will generate a code your login that you have. So that's applicable to whether you're logging into Amazon or LinkedIn or logging into anything that you do corporate. So maybe use Zero for your bookkeeping, for example. So Zero were really good and they actually stipulated a few years ago that everybody had to use an authenticator app to get into their
That's
software.
great.
But the problem was that there are businesses that say to their team members, we don't actually want you having your mobile phone on your desk. We don't want you having it, visible at work. So there was that big quandary of, oh, we're actually going to have to use it. And then it was looking at ways that you can bypass. And there are things you can do. There's a thing called a FIDO key. So you can actually have a key that you can stick into your computer to verify that it's you. You can get a call to a landline number or something like that as well. But yeah, ideally you want to be using an authenticator app to log into your MFA. And it's a kind of starting point on in the background. So if you work in a business which uses Microsoft, then there's technology available such as Intune. So that does mobile device management and you can apply conditional access policies. I'm trying to make this all in very plain English.
Know what you're talking about, but I know
Yeah,
the same way that other people
yeah,
listening won't. So analogy would be like if you are controlling like a fleet of buses, for example, and you had to know where all of those buses were, you could track them all from, and you could say that bus is going in that direction or that bus is going in that direction. Basically, from that controller, that administrative control, you can control how those devices are
yeah.
accessed and what they get access to in some sort of way. Is that a good analogy for you?
Yeah,
For that,
yeah. So
Liz?
if you put it into IT terms, so if you say somebody manages to get logged into your email and starts to try and email as you, maybe emails one of your clients or one of your suppliers, sending out invoices, asking to pay different bank accounts, all the kind of usual ways that they try and catch you out. So they've been able to log into your email because they have your username, they have your password, which these days they can get your username and your password pretty easily. You maybe don't have MFA switched on and you don't have any conditional access policy in place, which says that me, Liz, I can only log in to my email on this device and my phone. They're the only two corporate devices that I have. They're the only two devices that I'm allowed to be in. So if somebody on the other side of the world is trying to log in as me, and they're not on that device and they're not on that phone, then the computer says no and they just can't get in. The same with the location that you're in. So if I'm within the office environment, we have an office in Edinburgh, we have a location in Dundee and in the Highlands and a few places over Scotland. So if I'm in one of our office locations, the IP range for that office is secure. So we have that as a conditional access policy to say, when you're logging in from this device, we're actually not even going to challenge you for your MFA because it would be somebody
Mm-hmm.
coming in it would be a physical attack if somebody was to come in, and then other things would kick in if they weren't on that device. So yeah, there's lots of things, and the conditional access policies are really good as well for making sure that devices are compliant. So what I mean by that is, do you have, a long enough passcode on your phone? So the advice is from the NCSE that you have at least 6 digits to get into your phone, which I would say most people probably have now. And then on your computer itself, do you have a long enough, complex enough password to get into that? Again, on the aside about passwords, then the recommendation now is that you don't reset your password on a regular basis. It would only be reset if you actually thought that the password had been breached and somebody else knew your password, or you thought somebody had maybe seen it over your shoulder when you were typing it in one day. That's the only time that the advice is now that you change passwords, and that you use something like a password manager. So you are logging into that device. The conditional access policy says, actually, I'm going to check how old's the device that you're on. Is it on the most recent operating system? Oh, that operating system you're on is actually a bit old. I'm not going to let you in. So if you're looking at, for example, Windows 10 coming to an end of life, then when it comes to October, the end of October this year, if you're on a Windows 10 device and you have that conditional access policy in place in your business, you just won't be able to get in because that device just won't get any security updates. And what that means, that if there's a vulnerability found, so we've got the example of the NHS, being attacked when they had their Windows XP devices that were running, the equipment. It was such a basic attack, but it just wiped out, the financial and the personal, loss from that was just huge. So that's a big example which is in the news. But for your individual business and for you as an individual, it's the reputation. So it's not only the financial loss, but it's the reputation of your business. So say you ended up having to report it to the ICO, so the Information Commissioner's Office, you would have to report something within 72 hours of knowing that it had happened. And then it would be up to them if they would fine you or not, depending what steps you took. And then that's all public information. So the last thing you want is anything like that to happen to your business. So it's
And
really
I don't think
vitally
that's what
important
people
to take
think
it
about.
seriously. No, no.
They
And
don't think about that.
as a director of a business, the risk of the business is your responsibility. So it's not your outsourced IT company's responsibility to make sure that your business is secure. You, as the owner, the director, the person that is leading that organisation, the risk lies with you. And that's when you need to start thinking about things like, okay, my normal PI insurance doesn't include cyber insurance anymore. It hasn't for the last few years. Do I have a separate cyber insurance policy? Am I answering the questions accurately? Do I need to speak to somebody technical to make sure that what I'm saying in my policy is accurate, so that if the worst happened and I had to actually use my policy, am I going to be covered? And then it's balancing the risk and the reward as well. Like, how much are you going to pay for that policy? And if you've got things like a good Microsoft Secure score, if you've got Cyber Essentials in place and certified, then that will improve your cyber insurance, so your policy will be lower, based on things like that as well. So it's all connected, to your business risk as well.
As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs. And I think there's so much that people don't know when they're setting up a business that and you'll get this a lot as well. And there's no instruction book really for when you set up a business. And And we're looking at it from the technical side, right? That infrastructure that requires to be set up in order for you to run the basic technology of your business. But also, I look at it from a digital marketing perspective. How do you
Mm,
actually run the sales and the marketing from a digital perspective into the products and services that you offer to your clients, including your website? And that infrastructure needs to be able to support all the business functionality as it kind of goes forward. And I loved how in your introduction you mentioned that um, any IT support that you bring, it's about the future proofing of the business. It's about
mm,
looking at it from a year ahead and then working back from there as well. But just going back to the what businesses don't know what they don't know when it comes to
mm,
cybersecurity. There's a lot of small business owners that are setting up and they market heavily using social media, and they do a lot of business on social media, and their accounts are attacked quite frequently
mm,
on social media, and that they are not set up from a cyber basis because they don't have a technical setup, because they're not effectively running their business from their website purely through social media most of the time.
yeah.
And so it leads on to the data, is where I'm trying to
Mm,
get to with this long explanation, right? So it's the data that they're collecting, the data that's been held by these social media platforms, but also the data that they're holding and how that's linked with the ICO, which you mentioned there as well, which is the
mm,
Information Commissioner's Office, and the importance between these two things of cybersecurity, your tech and web presence, and your social media marketing, all that infrastructure for the setup, the data that it's producing, and the data that you're collecting, and where
mm,
that's held, and the importance of that. So let's talk a little bit about data and data protection, data security, the importance of that, and kind of how is this connected? Let's go into that a little bit more. Talk to me about what you guys like to talk about, Lugo, as much as you're able to
I
in
know.
that sense as well. But
I know.
again, it's this kind of like, how do we get people into that mindset of thinking that it's all connected? It's not just cybersecurity. It is about protecting people's data and protecting your data, your IP as well, and all of that. So yeah, how do you talk about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, because you've definitely got that responsibility on your shoulders as soon as you start collecting data from other people. That's that personally identifiable information, then you're hitting your GDPR requirements as well. Um, and just to touch on the security as well of the social media platforms, I know we've mentioned multi-factor authentication before, but it's vital that not only do you have a super strong password on all of your social media platforms, you don't share that password with anyone else. So it should be set up in a way that if it's a business page, then you're not all sharing the same login and you have your individual multi-factor authentication to be able to get in with your app. So Facebook's got it, LinkedIn's got it. I haven't found the option on LinkedIn to do it in anything apart from a text message, unfortunately, yet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, and obviously Instagram and all that's the same business as Facebook now as well. So yeah,
What
just
I think people don't realize with social media, especially the meta platforms, is that it's set up in a way to make sure that you're cyber secure. You just have to follow their instructions. And people don't follow their instructions in order to set it up
just want
in
it
a
to be
way.
easy.
They
Yeah,
want it to be easy. And they don't think about it from a business perspective. They think about it from a user perspective. So what are they doing on the platform? So for example, setting up Meta Business Suite, or setting up business a Meta Business instead, and then adding users onto the
mm,
profile is just the standard for making sure that you're cyber secure, because you control that
yeah,
user and how they
yeah.
accesses your assets. And people don't do that. They share login details. Here's my username and password for Facebook. Here's all my data,
I
right? All
know,
my personal life. Here it is.
I know.
You can have that login. And they send it to people remotely across the world, because they do
Hmm,
quite a lot of outsourcing abroad, which is fine.
hmm.
But you've got to think about this stuff,
And
right? You've
then
got to
what
think
hap
about the cybersecurity of
what
it.
happens if that person leaves your organization?
Huh? What happens? They've gone.
Yeah, think of all of the logins that they have. If you're sharing logins, and then are you going to remember to go through every single login and change the password and change the multi-factor
Yeah.
authentication.
So,
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
challenge.
a lot of it is just using, and I don't know if you guys share this as well, but I do it. It's very much like do what the tools are telling you to do because they've set them up in a way
Hmm.
so that they work better for you. You just need to
Yeah,
follow their instructions,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like
And
getting an IKEA box and not
I
and
know,
setting it up without the instructions, right? It's like that.
I know, I know. So it's okay once you've built the first two wardrobes, you can do the third and the fourth one, in your sleep because you know what you're doing. But yeah,
Yeah.
the first time you're doing it, and then when you're
Uh-huh.
taking on new members of staff as well, make sure that they're trained to do it in the right way, like you say, like the software's asking you to do.
Hmm.
It's all there. You just need to utilize it. But yeah, when it comes to the kind of the bigger data question, so historically, what would happen with data and client data and the data that you're holding that you need to be very careful that you're looking after. Back in the day, it would have probably been saved on your computer. So you'd have had it saved on your hard drive, on your C drive, and My Documents. And times have changed a wee bit. So maybe when I met Ron originally, there was a lot of physical servers going into businesses.
Yep.
So we went from
Server
that. Oh,
rooms.
yes,
Don't go
went
near
from
the
that.
server room.
Oh, you need a special key, special big key
Exactly.
to get into the server room.
You need to meet John, who's got Jim, who's got
Aye,
Fred, who's got Alan, who's got the key for that. They're only in on a Tuesday between 12 and 1.
I know. And then you go in with your dust mask on, basically, because
Exactly.
you get to sit in a wee box in a wee corner and do your software updates, and then hope that you get let out again at the end of the day. But yeah, so physical servers where, originally you would have had tape backups and things like that, and you would have made sure that somebody took it home in their handbag at the end of the day so that it was an off-site backup. So we've moved on a wee bit. So we still have some clients that do have physical servers, but now their backups are in the cloud. So we would have a backup on site, which is a replication, and then we also have an off-site backup, which is all done automatically in the cloud. So that's from the server perspective, but if you're thinking about your own individual device, you might be starting to use things like OneDrive or SharePoint or Google Drive. And the thing to think of with them is that by default, there's actually no backup of them. So if you were to mistakenly delete a file or something becomes corrupted and you've spent, hours working on this data, then what are you going to do? You're never going to be able to get it back. It's gone from the recycle bin, it's gone from everywhere. So for our clients, we actually have what's called a SaaS backup, a software as a
Mm,
service backup in place. So that means that their cloud environment is also backed up. So if they're using
that's great.
Microsoft, for example, all of their Teams messages, all of their emails, all of their SharePoint, all of their
Hmm.
OneDrive, everything's all backed up as well. And we do need to restore things from that more than you would think.
Yeah, I bet, especially because those are so easy. Deletes happen all the time when people are tidying up their computer
Yes,
in all that way as well.
yes.
Um, so I think that you've raised a really important point there around backups because most people are using cloud as backup. I would say generalization I'm making there, but I would say most people have automatically got cloud set up in some sort of way. But
Yeah.
that hard copy almost, isn't it still?
Mm.
Or that extra software backup is
Yes.
is really important.
Yeah.
Um,
And then when you move on to the thinking about the cloud for the business, so if you have applications, for example, that are still requiring to be installed on a desktop, a server, so they're not a completely cloud-based application. So
mm,
something like Zero for bookkeeping, that's completely cloud-based. You just need a browser and an internet connection, and you can get into your bookkeeping from anywhere. But if you use, for example, Sage 50 accounts or Sage 50 payroll, or any of the more kind of traditional desktop bits of software, they still require to be installed somewhere.
mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to have a physical server anymore, if you want the flexibility of being able to work
Like a
from
remote
anywhere,
server.
yeah.
Okay.
So what we do for our clients is we would build them what's called an Azure, Azure, a Microsoft Azure
Getting
server.
flashbacks to my last corporate job here with that phrase there. Need to log in remotely via Azure.
Do you need to lie down? Are you
Maybe.
okay?
It was legal corporate as well. No, I actually enjoyed that job. So, yeah, but I just got flashbacks there to that. That's funny. But it
So
is, it's a tool. You just log in
yeah,
through that
exactly.
terminal.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so you get a wee icon on your desktop and you log in, and then that's you logged into the server. And you can do that again from whatever you want to, as long as you got your laptop, got your icon, take it anywhere, got an internet connection. So if something happens in the office and your internet went down, you could grab your laptop and you could go and work from
Yeah,
somewhere else that you
brilliant.
can get an internet connection, and it's all secure and all backed up.
And I think companies don't realize that it's not too difficult to set this stuff up as well. And I don't want to leave out the Apple users as well, because
Yeah, yeah,
people are using Apple. There are setups for Apple as well. They're just called something different. So you can use similar setups and similar
yeah.
functions
And
to also use Mac alternatives, and so
I,
they do.
yeah.
There
And
is
I'm
options
actually a
there too.
Mac user. So everything
Hmm.
that I've talked about today, I can access it all through my Mac as well. So gone
Yeah,
are the days where it was very kind of, Microsoft versus Apple. I think
exactly.
Apple have
It's
obviously
massively
embraced the
different.
fact that, yeah, that we
This
need to be able
I
to
was at
play together.
Apple 10 years ago. I left Apple. So it's been 10 years ago since I worked there. And even at that time, it was becoming more Apple, Microsoft and Apple friendly at that time. But at that time, we just moved over to chain installing apps manually
Hmm. Hmm.
via the CD, because computers had stopped getting CD drives at that point. So we then had to have external CD drives to then install, for example, printers. Printers still
Hmm.
come with a CD. A lot of computers still won't work without the printer driver. So yeah, that's important to make sure that you've got that extra backup so that you can
Yeah.
restore any miss and forgotten or lost information. Now, I suppose you're working with a lot of accountancies, housing associations. There are requirements legally there to keep
Hmm.
data, to keep it. Data is the foundations of accounting, I would think, right?
Yeah.
So they need to make sure that they're storing their customers' data safe and secure, and it's super important for cybersecurity and the other things that we talked about because of those businesses. But
Hmm.
that business category actually, but it doesn't take away from any business owner being cyber secure, data aware, making sure that their customers are safe and secure at all
No,
times, and
no,
themselves as well.
no. And I think when you look at the cyber essentials requirements, so they are all prevention methods. So the five pillars that you have don't mention backup,
Mm-hmm.
because backup is something you would go to if the worst happened. So if you had a ransomware attack and they held your data to ransom, you wanted a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin, to get your data back. And again, the advice is that you never pay the ransom. That's straight from the government's mouth, as NCSE just say now straight out, you don't pay the ransom, which is new advice. They never used to say that. So that's really good. So you don't pay the ransom, so that means you need to have a really good backup in place. So you need to make sure that you're confident that what you're backing up is there and safe and secure and, yeah, disconnected. And like you say, so many people are using cloud now and they don't appreciate the fact that their cloud stuff potentially is not backed up by default,
Yeah,
depending
once it's
on,
gone in the cloud, it's gone.
yeah, but at least at the end of the cyber essentials requirements, it does have an additional notes area. And in there, it does say, please be aware that it's really vital that you have, yeah, a good backup in place.
Okay. Do you think with AI, and we've not talked about AI at all yet, so AI is everywhere right now, and it's going to be even more so because it's going to be built into the devices even more, and we're going to see that updating as people are updating their devices. Copilot with their Microsoft becoming basically taking over
Mhm.
some of the functionality. Google Sheets announced yesterday their AI, which looked pretty cool, if I'm honest with you. Talk to me about AI. How
Mm,
is AI being used for innovation in businesses? Talk about any
yeah,
examples on your clients. Let's go down that route.
yeah. Well, we actually ran an event as part of Cyber Scotland Week a few months ago. We ran it at the Abertay Cyber Quarter, and it was great.
Nice.
It was, yeah, so it was a right mixture of talking about cybersecurity and AI. And specifically, we had some great demonstrations and insights into Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot is the ability to not only go to a browser and access Copilot through a browser, but you can actually have Copilot embedded if you have the kind of license. I think that the license costs roughly £25 a user a month. So with that license, you can have Copilot embedded in all of your Office applications. So whether it's your email, so you want it to maybe ask me what have I got, what's my priorities for today based on the emails that I have in my inbox, or you open up quite a big email and it says, would you like to summarize this email for you? Too long, didn't read one of them. Would you like me to draft a reply for you? So, it's always got the caveat of going through and checking it yourself. You're never sending it straight without, without, but it saves so much time. So I've been using it for quite a few months now, and I'm blown away by just the amount that it can do. You can embed it within, so it's automatically embedded within Excel. It can easily just create things that I've never done before, so like macros and beautiful graphs, and especially if you're working with a lot of data, being able to analyze that data within, it's what's called a large language model. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically type in English what it is you'd like it to do with the data that you have, and then it generates it for you within Word. So I also use it for dictation. So I'll just talk to my computer and it'll type out, whether I'm writing a letter or whether I'm, drafting a thought leadership blog or whatever I'm doing. It will help me just get going and get started and give me some outline. And then if I want it to go away and say, okay, give me a bit more insight on the latest developments in CIS benchmarks, then it'll come back with, all the stuff from the web as well. But the good thing about Microsoft Copilot is that you can actually be confident that the data is all held securely within your own environment. So anything that you put into your searches is not going out into the World Wide Web, because as soon as it's out in the web, then other people can then search that data. So as an organisation, our advice is get an AI policy in place straight away. So actually make a decision as an organisation what you're going to use for AI or what you're not going to use for AI, and share it with your whole team, because the stats at the moment is that 80% of SMEs, of people within your team, so 80% of your team are already using AI, whether you know it or not. So they could be putting sensitive information into things like ChatGPT, and as soon as it's out there, or Google Gemini or whatever tools it is, you can't get it back. So if you're kind of thinking, oh, I'll maybe just get a hand with that tax calculation just to double check, because apparently, according to people in the know, they're actually pretty good at getting
Mm-hmm.
tax calculations right.
Yeah.
But if you
It's
mistakenly
just
put
a big
in some
computer
client,
doing maths
I
problems, so
know,
it's working
I
out
know,
really. So,
yeah, and applying all the right legislation, and
uh-huh.
so yeah, it's never going to take people's jobs away in terms of that consultative role and stuff like that. But it's just going to make you more efficient, up your time to do the strategy stuff, the really added value stuff that you want to do as part of your business. To do what you really enjoy doing, and not to spend any more time on the admin than you have to. For example, we've got a 90-day catch up with our team this afternoon. So I've been using Copilot to help me produce the PowerPoint. So I've just been talking to it and, telling it my agenda, and then it comes away and does all the beautiful graphics, and yeah, it saves a lot of time.
AI is going to, especially within the Microsoft world, it's really going to free up the challenges that business owners have, which is administration. Microsoft packages and businesses are basically run off the backlog of administrative challenges that are there. And this is where automation and the AI automotive tools and having them built into the infrastructure of the IT. So that's the benefit of Copilot, really, is that if you are a Microsoft based organization where you're using
Mm,
Microsoft hardware as well as the software being the entire 365 infrastructure, SharePoint, Outlook, all of it, it's worth the investment then
mm,
of everybody utilizing Copilot and putting that policy in place. How are we
mm,
using it? What's our standard procedure here for how we're operating, how we use AI within the business? And that has to come from the top down. That
yeah,
can't come from anywhere else. But
yeah,
that number, 80% of people are using AI, whether business owners know it or not. They are, because it's built
yeah.
into their devices.
And
They're
and
getting
the
shown on the adverts on TV how to do it.
I know. And the thing is, don't be scared of dipping your toe in the water either, because the worst thing for your organisation would be to be left behind. You know, like you say, it's everywhere at the moment. Like I was watching the Masters the other day, and there was an advert on for a Callaway golf club, and apparently it's AI in it, and you're like, how can a golf club? People are just putting AI everywhere now.
Yeah, it's a hot
Trying-
topic for everyone.
yeah,
It's just what's the use of it and what's the sustainable
exactly.
aspect of implementing it as well, which is what I'm going to move into good conversations with about sustainable AI and ethical AI.
Yeah.
Because ethical tech is a huge conversation as well. And with AI, we're not thinking about that. We're not thinking about the fact it uses gallons of water whenever we ask it a question. So I know we're in the rain, but it doesn't mean that we not to think about these things. Okay, I can't believe we're almost an hour in, Liz. I want to talk to you forever around all of this
Oh, it's been
stuff because
lovely,
it's good fun.
Suze.
But I want to finish off with what are some 3 tips that you can help people with their innovation, their AI, their cyber? What can you help business owners with? And then we'll talk about how do they connect with you afterwards. So, yeah, what 3 tips have you got for people?
So my first one will come as no surprise. It'll be that if multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, whatever you want to call it, if it's available, switch it on because it's free and I think from an email statistic, it makes you 99.9% more secure if you have it on as to not having it on. Um, Check what operating system you have on your device. Check it's up to date. Check against the operating system's website. So if you're on an Apple device, check with Apple and make sure you're on the most recent operating system. If you're on a Windows device and you're on Windows 10, there's a utility that you can check if you can get to Windows 11. There may be some components in your device that won't allow you to get to Windows 11. So then you'll need to budget for a new device before the 14th of October. And finally, have a longer term strategy for your IT. Try not to think of it just as a kind of day-to-day thing that's a necessity. Think about where your organisation's going overall and how IT, technology, how everything can support you to get there in the most efficient, secure, and exciting manner. I mean, I love IT. I love technology. I love learning things. I love sharing it with people. And anything that we can do at Lugo to support you with that, then we'd be happy to have a chat.
And it does sound like you do that already, Liz, as well. So thank you so much for coming on for this really fast hour that
I
we've been
know.
chatting away, Liz. I think we could probably chat forever about this stuff. I love talking about this stuff as well. And really diving into the importance of being safe, secure, ethical, legal at all times. And that really helps you build your know, like, trust with your customers. And the tech is there to support that. That's what it's
It
there to
is.
do. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how people can connect with Liz and with Lugo is by going to lugoit.co.uk. On the website, you'll find a book now button, which is at the top and at the bottom. And you can book a free 1 hour call with Liz, and they will help you with any questions, whether it comes to your IT infrastructure or any questions around cybersecurity, your innovation, AI, any questions. It's just good to talk to an expert. And so Liz and her team, which we shared before we got on the session, but the team of 31 can help out, and they are there to get you running so that your business you can do the work and the business can run for you, if that kind of sums up really of what you're doing,
Yeah.
Liz,
Yeah.
at
And
Lugo IT.
our strap line is that we'd like to do everything with Lugo love. So yeah, we're all about
Yes.
caring for you as an organisation. So yeah,
Yeah.
anything we can do to help, just reach out.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me today,
Thank you, Suze.
Liz, and I'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
That's it for this episode of Digital Dominators. If your brain's buzzing and you're ready to keep that digital energy going, come join us at technologycoaching.online. It's the community for small business owners who want to get visible, take action, and grow with the right support around them. Head to technologycoaching.online. I'd love to see you there. And until next time, keep showing up, tackling your tech, and dominating your digital world.